thank you so much for being with us here today.
Hi, Bill. So nice to see you on screen. Great to be with you.
You know, you work actively, hands-on with the churches, particularly in BC and the Yukon area. And so what are you seeing and what are you noticing about the church in Canada right now?
Yeah, I think the greatest change, the shift in the church in Canada has been globalization.
Right.
We've been impacted by immigration and newcomers to Canada. Congregations are rapidly growing and becoming more and more international. In Canada, 24%, one out of every four people of our population is foreign born. And I'm an example of that. I was born in Karachi, Pakistan, came here in 1970 and integrated as a Canadian. I'm a Canadian citizen now, but I'm among 1.3 million new immigrants that came between 2016 and 2021. So I think that's probably the biggest shift we've seen impacting the church in Canada.
Yeah, I agree with you. In the 22 years that I've been here, I've seen a dramatic shift. And now most of our new families are coming from other parts of the world. And so this is becoming a pressing need, not only for the church, but also for our culture and society. And so how have you seen the church practically meeting the needs of this new demographic, these new Canadians?
Well, that's great. It's a great question. The immigrants that are coming are highly educated,
Yes.
trained. They're coming from areas like China, India, Latin America, Southeast Asia, highly skilled, but they're finding our systems difficult. Transportation systems, educational systems, banking systems. And so churches that really reach into this community are ones that have really developed a good outreach strategy to help people become more Canadian in their lifestyle.
Yeah, I agree with you. In our context, we're recognizing that they want to become a part of a Canadian church. They don't want a church that's only their ethnicity or language because they want to become more Canadian. And we have a great opportunity to serve this need. We've also been learning, though, you have to also give them a voice and a platform. Again, you celebrate by what you see. And so we're just growing and exploding in this area as a result of that. And I can imagine you're hearing some great stories about what some churches are actually doing. So can you give us a couple of examples of what churches are doing in your area?
Yeah, the greatest example that comes to mind is our Arabic church. It was newly planted about 4 or 5 years ago. And the pastor there is just amazing in reaching into these communities of faith and into the non-churched areas as well. So, Bill, some of these people who are coming are Christians already,
Right.
and others aren't. And so he has started a ministry for orientation, medical systems, transport, the internet technology that we have here in Canada, banking, even things like fraud protection. Many of these people who are coming to Canada are vulnerable because fraud is prevalent here in Canada, and they can be taken easily. So they've set up some educational options for them and language and employment options. The other thing is loneliness. There's social isolation within these communities. And so meaningful community drop-in centers, places where mental health needs can be addressed, depression, anxiety, separation anxiety from their home country. And further, they've developed things like addiction recovery as well, because some of the folks that have come as newcomers, they have addictions and other things that need to be broken. So those have been the most significant stories. Food banks have been open for those that are less privileged than others. And so the churches that have done this best are in the Latino, Punjabi, Kerala, Filipino community, and certainly this Arabic church that is worked.
Yeah, for us, we just found that putting them in key leadership positions was critical because, again, you hear and they hear and see things and give input to things that we maybe wouldn't have thought of. And we also recently have been engaging new Canadians who are trapped in hotels, ways to come and hang out with their families and have food and fun and just really practical ways that you can make a difference. And so just really quickly, maybe our viewers are watching and they're a part of a church. What are just a couple of really practical, proactive ways that they could make a difference in the lives that God is bringing to our great country?
Yeah, well, one of the highest needs, I think, is ESL programs. English as a second language is taught, and if it's offered free through a church community or a home setting where families are helped to improve their English skills, that's a really good way into the newcomers' lives. The other part is what you mentioned. A lot of them are fleeing from very terrible situations, so refugee sponsorship programs are important as well, and our network has worked in this area very successfully. But if you want to do something fun to reach into these communities, and the specific one that I was addressing earlier, the Arabic community filled with Muslims, they love to eat, they love to
Yes.
have a barbecue, they love to have sporting events. We've done some of those things through this church and other churches in our area very successfully. So they feel that they're not being indoctrinated; they're just being befriended, and
Yeah.
that's very important.
Love wins. It just does. But I want to talk about some of the challenges as well. So, Ken, you're a leader of leaders. You oversee a lot of churches in your area. What do you think personally is the biggest challenge facing the church in our culture today?
Well, I think there's actually three that I can label, so I'll be quick. But living in a post-pandemic reality, our churches have shifted. There's a social cultural shift that's gone on, and we, by and large, we were caught unaware. The first one is a real shift to individualism and isolation. People are disconnecting from time consuming, messy, anxiety provoking interpersonal relationships. They're going online and they're placing more emphasis on self rather than others. We're in a high tech, low touch world.
Right.
And so this has created a challenge for the church. Church has become an option to gather and worship together rather than a necessity for spiritual growth in life. So that's the first one. The second one is intensified emotions. People are making life-changing decisions on how they feel, and their identity is tied up in their feelings rather than in the truth of God's word. And so this is a challenge facing the church. We need to address people's purpose, their identity, and their destiny. And the third one is we live in an information overloaded world. Google can tell you things that the average person didn't know many, many years ago. But the problem with that is information without discernment leads to confusion. And so these are three things I've identified as the greatest challenges for the church.
Oh, that is so good. And it was even alliteration. I love it. Isolation, identity, and information overload. Really true. And how do you think we got here? Like, what has happened to us? And maybe even in the church, how have we kind of maybe let this creep in even into our church culture?
Well, I think we've had a love affair with technology for a very long time. And people's trust levels with what they're hearing and seeing online, TikTok videos and other social media programs have really influenced them, coupled with the fact that big tech companies have used algorithms for a long time to shape consumer behavior and our understanding. And so our dependency on technology has shifted the church. So this is how we've gotten here. We have an apologetic complacency among believers to actually speak the truth, to proclaim the truth, to live the truth in their lives. And so I think that's how we got here, technology. And I'm not blaming technology, but I think that's how we got there.
No, I agree with you 100%. One of the things we're learning in our context is people actually just want the truth again. They're tired of truth being spun or angled or manipulated. Don't try to convince me. Just tell me the truth and let me make a decision. I'm finding that in our context. But for you, as you think about this and the challenges we're facing, what do you think can be done about it?
Well, I think we need to emulate Christ. So Christ was not above culture. He wasn't below culture. He was embedded in culture. And so if we embrace the mission of Christ to transform culture, we cannot approach it combatively. We have to approach it redemptively, just like Jesus did. So as followers of Christ, we should use technology and social media to redeem what's broken in our culture. So people's identity is based on sexuality today. rather than on who they were designed to be by their creator, their purpose. If we can proclaim that true purpose of why God created human beings and their destiny, I think we can embrace technology rather than run from it or fear it, and use social media to proclaim truth in these three areas of identity, purpose, and destiny.
That is so good. I really hope that there are pastors or key leaders in our churches and those who attend church that are listening to this. But do you have just one? We have just a short time left. Do you have maybe a story, an example of where this is happening?
Yeah, I think the best example that I've seen take place in our church is one of our churches in downtown Vancouver, Broadway Church. They use social media really well, and they have run a course called Skeptics. So it's based on an interactive meal where people who have questions about faith, or they're even a bit skeptical about Christianity or religion in general, can come in a non-threatening atmosphere and have their questions answered with truth. So that's about the best example I've seen. There's other programs like Celebrate Recovery, Divorce Care, Financial Planning, the Truth Project Alpha. There's lots of programs that we run, but it comes down to the relational level. It really does.
Well, thank you so much for being with us here today. You've helped so much, and keep up the great work. We need you. We need great leaders like you who are cheering on our pastors in the local church to be innovative and reach into culture in order to see lives transformed by the power of Jesus. Thanks, Ken. It's always great to talk to you.
My pleasure, Bill.